Hey everyone, just taking a quick 15 seconds to let you know that my new book, The Fitness Mindset, Eat for Energy, Train for Attention, Manage Your Mindset, Reap the Results, which hit the bestseller list within 24 hours of its release, is now available to buy on Amazon. So if you're looking for everything you need to get into incredible shape and the mindset to keep it forever, be sure to check it out. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Welcome to Keane Fitness Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset with your host Brian Keane.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Keane Fitness Podcast. We talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset to help you with your goals. Today's episode is a Q&A and I pulled all the questions from my Instagram. So if you're not following my Instagram, Keane Fitness on Instagram, I've checked through my DMs and my DMs have been crazy the last few weeks. So apologies to anyone that I haven't got back to yet. The book hit the bestseller list as soon as it came out, The Fitness Mindset, my book that I released a couple of weeks ago, and my DM has just been inundated since. But I'm trying to get back to everyone as I can. But I did pull a couple of questions. So these questions come straight from my DM on Instagram, and one or two from my Instagram live Q&As. So be sure to check out my Instagram as well. First question comes in from Kevin James. Hey Brian, what are your thoughts on weight gaining shakes? Okay, so for people that use weight gaining shakes generally are hard gainers or people that are trying to add a lot of muscle to their frame or add a lot of size to their frame. So I'm going to approach this from two different angles, because when I think weight gainer, the first thing that comes to mind is going into a shop and buying a big massive bucket of weight gaining powder that costs 50 or 60 euro that has 12 servings. When I think of weight gaining shake, I think of nutrient dense quality shakes that you make yourself with your own ingredients and that you blend up in a NutriBullet or you blend up in a blender. So when I think of weight gaining shakes, I think of both angles. So I'll approach it from both sides. I personally think the ones you buy in the actual supplement stores are a massive waste of money. I think they're pretty low for the majority. Again, this isn't every weight gaining shake, but the majority have pretty low ingredients. They're filled up with dextrose and maltodextrin and different very, very cheap carbohydrates that bump up the calories and bump up the actual carbohydrate intake so that you're getting 1,000 calories per shake, but they're with very, very poor ingredients. If you did the math on actual weight gaining shakes and what they sell for and how much they actually cost to make, you'd actually be mind blowing. I would go as far to say that they may take 2 or 3 euro to make one of those 60 euro pouches because the ingredients are so poor. So I personally am a big fan of traditional weight gaining shakes purely because I think they're a waste of money and they use inferior ingredients. I know that they're very, very handy and it's great to be able to throw 2 scoops or 4 scoops into your shake, blend it up and get 1,000 calories. So it can work really well for some people. And if you're somebody with a lot more money than time and you're not too worried about getting the best quality ingredients, they can work really, really well. However, what I like to do with people that come through my BKF online program, and I have people that come through that are hard gainers or are looking to put on a lot of size. I have some people in my GA Lean Body program that are similar. I prefer to make your own weight gaining shakes for a couple of reasons. One, you can use quality ingredients that are nutrient dense that are going to work for your body much better in terms of your carbohydrate, your fat and your protein intake, and you're going to be able to absorb them much better, get a lot fuller, feel a lot fuller from them, and you're going to be able to save yourself a small fortune by making them yourself. So for example, you go into a shop and get a weight gainer. It's normally some form of cheap whey protein or protein isolate. It's normally got maltodextrin, it's normally got dextrose and a variance of different carbohydrates and ingredients that have been added to it. If you make your own shake, you can control what goes into it. So you can literally create your own weight gaining shake that's going to support you, that saves you a small fortune. For example, one of the ones in my GA Lean Body program, actually this one's in my BKF online program as well, and I put it up on my Instagram. So if you scroll through my Instagram a couple of months ago, you'll see it. It's 100 grams of oats, 3 or 4 tablespoons of peanut butter, adding in some flaxseed oil, some hemp seed oil if you have it, a couple of scoops of whey protein or rice protein, blend it all up, and you've got yourself 1,000 calorie shake. The key really is making sure you're using a good complex carbohydrate so you can bump that up and keep your glycogen stores full, which is something you want to do with somebody that's using a weight gaining shake, and that's not necessarily the case in the ones you buy in supplement stores, even though some have started to do that now because of obviously supply and demand. But it's the fats that are going to bump up those calories. Using almond butter, peanut butter, coconut oil, flaxseed oil, caprylic acid, different kind of oils that you can add that are very calorie dense, so that you don't need to add a lot to get a lot of calories. You add 4 tablespoons of peanut butter to your shake and now you've bumped it up by 400 calories. Using that once or twice during the day is going to bump up your calories by 2,000. And then if you're eating, say, 500 or 600 in your different meals through the day, you can easily get your calories up to 3, 4, 5, even 6,000 if you really need to. So my advice to anybody that's looking to add weight or bulk up or add size, regardless of gender, because girls try and bulk up as well, is make your own. You have more control on the actual calories you're taking in. You'll save yourself a small fortune and you'll have ingredients that are going to be much better absorbed, so you get. Okay, next question comes in from Jason Doherty. Do you use a Fitbit and what do you think of fitness watches? Okay, so my thoughts on Fitbits and different fitness watches is, I think depending on the person, I think they can work tremendously well. If you're somebody that really likes to track everything that you do, I think they're definitely worth the investment. Personally, I don't use them, even though I have contemplated getting a Fitbit in the past, purely because I like the idea of tracking my steps. And I do know that they have the sleep tracker and things like that. However, my sister has sent me she's a PhD in Northumbria University in the UK, and she was sending me studies about the inaccuracy of the actual sleep tracker on Fitbit, so I don't think that's its personal strong use. However, I do think that tracking your steps through the day, particularly if you're somebody that works in an office, it can be very, very encouraging to see that, all right, I need to hit 2 more thousand steps today, and it's a good way of leading a more active lifestyle. So on from that side of it, I think it's very, very good. I personally don't use it just because I think it's slightly gimmicky, even though I do think they're really, really good. And maybe it's just because I haven't used it no more than I would have said the same thing about the Apple iPhone until I got an iPhone, and now I can never have another phone. So maybe a case that if I got a Fitbit or a smartwatch or a fitness watch and then I started using it, I'd realize that, oh, actually I could never live without this. So maybe it's a case of a bit of cognitive dissonance where I'm like, well, actually I don't need it because I haven't experienced it. So there may be a case of that. But personally, I do like the idea of tracking steps. But the most important thing for me is during workouts being able to time my rest periods so that I'm working within the right rep ranges, the right rest periods within the parameters I'm trying to work in. So if I'm working for hypertrophy, I want to be doing my 8 to 10 reps, and then I want to be timing my rest so I'm getting 60 to 90 seconds, and I can do that with a basic Casio watch. A normal training watch will do that. The same as if you're training for strength and you're resting 2-3 minutes, it's important to track your rest period and time so that you're working within the right parameters. So I think in terms of the most important thing that you need on a watch is going to be a stopwatch. I have everyone that comes through my BKF online program and anyone that comes through my GA Lean Body program, the first thing that I say on one of the videos is get a watch and time your rest periods so that you're able to stick within the right parameters and you're not spending 2 hours in the gym because you got caught up chatting or you lifted too heavy or you lifted too light. Make sure that you have the weights tracked so you know what you're lifting, and you have your rest period and your stopwatch there so you're not resting too long or resting too little, so that you're working within the right parameters around your specific goals. I don't think you necessarily need a fitness watch to do that. However, I do like the idea, and it may be a case that if I do get one and I use it, I may find that I'll never go without it, because I do know that people that use Fitbits and different fit watches are massive fans of them, even though I do think the sleep side of it's probably a little bit skeptical, but the tracking your steps and things like that will work very well for people that work well within that I need to track everything lifestyle. So again, it's down to each person. I haven't used them. I have no plans to use them. But that's not to say that they're not incredible and that they work really well for certain people. Next question comes in from Christian Wine. Will creatine help me gain mass? Okay, the short and the long answer of this is no and yes. Creatine won't allow you to gain any mass. What's going to allow you gain mass is making sure that you're eating enough calories and that your body is in a calorie surplus so that you have extra amino acids, you have extra calories that your body can use to add size to your frame. However, what creatine can do is it can pull more water underneath the cell so that when you are training, you're able to lift more weight for the same reps that you normally use, or you can use the same rep range or the same weight for more reps than you would normally use. So what can happen is an increase in fiber tears, that you tear more fibers down because you've moved more weight with perfect form, or you've done more reps with the weight you normally use because of the water that's been pulled underneath the cell. And as a result, if you have enough calories and have enough amino acids, you can build more lean muscle. That's effectively how creatine works. And it can add mass indirectly. Taking it by itself without training in the right parameters, working for hypertrophy, working for size, getting enough calories, getting enough amino acids to repair the cells that have been torn, Creatine by itself will not add any mass. However, it can supplement. It's a supplement at the end of the day. That means that it supplements what you're missing in your nutrition, or can aid in supporting whatever it is your goal is, which is the case of creatine. It can speed up your body's ability to add mass, assuming you have everything else on point. So what I would advise is anyone that's adding in creatine, and it's a tremendous supplement. Creatine is one of the supplements that's in both of my programs. It's in my BKF online program in the muscle building section, and it's in my GA lean body program for anyone that's looking to build size and strength, because it is the most scientifically backed supplement on the planet, and it works tremendously well at pulling water underneath the cell, which can make you stronger. But will it add mass? No, unless you have everything else on point. If you have your nutrition, you're eating enough calories and you're getting into a surplus and you're working within the right training parameters to tear enough fibers, and you add in creatine, it can lead you to adding more mass and can increase the amount of size you have on your frame, but by itself it doesn't really do anything. Okay, next question comes in from Cameron. Why do you think there's a steroid culture emerging, ego lifting, people taking shortcuts, etc.? Okay, so a couple of angles I could approach this one from. This came up on an Instagram live, but I'm going to expand it a little bit more here on the podcast even. I personally don't think there's a steroid culture emerging. I do think it's down to education and knowledge, and the fact that we have more access to social media and we can see what more people are doing, which may make us think that there's more of a steroid culture or performance enhancing culture emerging than there really is. The truth is, this is the only time in life when we literally can click on our phone and see what people on the other side of the world are doing. And if you're on Instagram and you're following professional fitness models or professional bodybuilders or professional bikini girls, and what you're seeing is these tremendous athletes that have incredible physiques, that's what you see, and you may think that that culture is affecting everybody around you, because what happens is your reticular activation system, your part of your brain that has focus, it's like your brain's internal GPS, and it chooses what you see, starts to see that everywhere else. So the example that they use in studies with the reticular activation system in the brain is that if you buy a new car, all you see on the street is new cars. If you end up getting pregnant, all you see on the street is other people that are pregnant, and your brain focuses on the things that are most important to you at that moment in time, or the things that you see the most in that moment in time. There's a great study done and they talk about it in the book, The Happiness Advantage, called the Tetris Effect, that they had students come in and play Tetris, I think, for 18 hours a day. And what happened was, when they went out onto the street and they went into their local supermarket, all they could see was the different boxes on the shelf and how it would fit into different Tetris angles. And when they were looking at buildings, they were like, well, if I turn this building on its axis, I'd be able to fit it in here. Because what happens with your reticular activation system is your brain gets used to focusing on the things that it sees. So if you spend 18 hours playing Tetris, your brain starts to wire that way. And the author talks about how he spent 16 hours playing the new Grand Theft Auto when it came out, and his first thoughts when he saw a police car was to go over and steal it when he went out onto the street. That's what happens. So that's why it's so important with the things that you put into your mind, because the way you see the world is everything that you put into your head. Thoughts become things. The thoughts you put into your head will lead to the actions that you take, and the actions you take will create the life that you have. If you're putting the fitness culture and the steroid culture that's within the hardcore section of the fitness industry into your brain, that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to focus on. So I personally don't think there's a steroid culture emerging, and I'm glad, again, each to their own. If you choose to use performance enhancers or fat burners or steroids or whatever it is, it's very much down to each person's decision. The only advice I would offer is educate yourself on all the positives and negatives that come with anything you put into your body. That goes for recreational drugs and alcohol as well, and then it's up to your decision to make it. If you're at a legal consent age, it's up to you to decide what you put into your body. But I personally don't think that culture is emerging. I just think it's a case that because we have more access to online, we have more access to social media, we can see what goes on in the professional fitness model world, we can see what goes on in the professional bodybuilding world, we can see what goes on with professional bikini athlete girls, and we can see some of the stuff that they may be using, may be taking, and then that filters down to your local gym where you see guys or girls in incredible shape and you're wondering, well, are they using steroids? When in case maybe they're not. Some are genetically gifted, some work very, very hard, some are using performance enhancers, possibly. Again, go check out the episode I talked on Real Talk on steroids within the fitness industry. Hopefully you guys will get a lot of value from that. If it's something that you're worried or wondering about in terms of behind the curtains of the fitness industry, I did a full episode on that. But I personally don't think it's down to a culture emerging. I do think there are people that will lift it. There will be ego, and there will be people that will use performance enhancers because of different things that are going on in their life. They may feel they need to be stronger. They may feel they want to compete someday. They may feel they need to excel in this area of their life because they're not fulfilled elsewhere. That's very, very possibly true. Again, I would never speak on anybody else. I can only speak on my own past experiences when I was in the fitness model world and I was using high-end fat burners and things like that to try and get my body fat down. It was down to me dealing with my own insecurities and how unhappy I was with the way I looked. But that's not necessarily the case for everybody else. You know, people have their own reasons for doing things. People have their own reasons for choosing to put things into their body, and that's down to each person. So I don't think it's a case of it being as black and white as everybody's trying to take shortcuts. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and I can only speak as myself. When I had my own issues with body dysmorphia and I hated the way I looked, I would have taken anything that was going to bring my body fat down. I would have done anything because I was so unhappy with the way I looked, and I didn't see what other people saw. Even though I was walking around lean and ripped and people were complimenting me on what I saw, all I could see was, well, my chest isn't good enough or my legs aren't big enough, and that's what happens, and that's effectively what body dysmorphia is. It just shows up in different people in different ways, and what happens with steroids is it looks like a plaster for that because it can numb you from that, and people will go to fat burners or performance enhancers or steroids or pro hormones thinking it's going to fill the void of what's actually going wrong or what's going on within them, when the truth is it's finding the cause of that anxiety, finding the cause of that unhappiness, finding the cause of that comparison that's making you feel inadequate to everyone around you. When you pull the curtain back and you start to reflect and have a self-awareness on yourself and realize that, do you know what, this is something going on within me that I'm projecting elsewhere, and I'm thinking that steroids are going to be the fix or fat burners are going to be the fix, and when I look this way I'll be happy. And when you put your happiness into an external source, you're always going to look for something external to fulfill that happiness. I talked about in the last section of my book in the fitness mindset that when you search for happiness in external things, that you're never going to be happy because you always need something external to promote that happiness, whether that's a nice car, an attractive girlfriend, a good word towards your physique. That's something external. So when you need something external to make you feel that sense of security and that sense of happiness, that's going to translate how you do anything is how you do everything. And what's going to happen is every time you need a sense of satisfaction or happiness, you need to look from an external source, when the truth is the people that are the most satisfied, and I can only speak as someone that came out the other side, it's why I put it as a chapter in a section in the book, was down to understanding that you had to sort the problem, the cause, what was going on within you. When I was able to deal with my anxiety, when I was able to deal with my constant comparison to other people, when I was able to deal with all these negative emotions that were coming up within me and not masking them with a fat burner or masking them with exercising too much or masking them with alcohol or whatever it was at the time that I was trying to numb out to, I was able to come out the other side. So I don't necessarily think that just because someone's using a performance enhancer or steroid or pro hormone or fat burner that it's down to ego lifting or taking shortcuts. There may be other things going on there. Again, I'm only speaking from my own personal experience. I've never put words into anyone else's mouth, but that's also something that's worth thinking about in terms of that may be the issue as opposed to an actual steroid culture emerging. And again, maybe there is a culture emerging that I'm just not aware of, but I personally think it's down to the access of information that we have and your body and your brain's ability to see what's most prevalent in your life because of the thoughts you put into your mind from the people you follow or the content that you follow. And that's not a knock on anything you're following. I'm just speaking as somebody that was in that world, and that's all I could see when I was there. So that may be worth looking at as well. Okay, next question from Terry Brown. Downside of low carb diets. Okay, so Terry, there's a couple of downsides and a couple of positives of the low carb diet, and there's a couple of hacks you can do to make sure that you don't get those downsides. One of the main downsides for low carbohydrate diet is that if you go too low carb for too long, your body can stall and your metabolism can stall. So it effectively means that you go 50 grams of carbs, 100 grams of carbs. Low carb is subjective to each person. Low carb for one person may be 300 grams. It may be 0 for somebody else. So again, understanding your number is very important. But for the basis of easiness, I'm going to use 50 grams as low carb for just the context of this answer. So if you go to 50 grams of carbohydrates, your body starts to, and assuming you're in a calorie deficit, assuming you're eating enough protein, assuming that your workouts and your cardio and everything is in alignment with reducing body fat, your body's ability to lose more body fat by reducing carbs can increase, and your actual way you feel can make you, because what happens with carbohydrates is it pulls water underneath the cell. The glycogen can make you feel more full and more watery. When you reduce that back and you pull out some of that water, you can feel way leaner. It's why people that come into fitness shows or come into bodybuilding shows that do photo shoots manipulate their carbohydrates on that last week, because it can pull a lot of weight off your body in terms of scale weight and make you feel way leaner because you pulled a lot of that carbohydrate out, and some will reload it again depending on metabolism. So again, it's context dependent. But what happens if you go too low carb for too long is your body gets a metabolic adaptation. It basically gets used to doing that. You know, your body, in terms of physical training, in terms of supplements, in terms of food, in terms of everything, is very, very adaptive. The reason that water loading and that people can manipulate water and look really, really ripped and lean by manipulating water is because your body adapts to an increase in water, and then when you decrease it back, your body has that adaptation that I'm going to get 10 liters every day, and then when you drop it to 2 liters, you end up getting extra subcutaneous water out and you can look way leaner. Training is the same. If you do the exact same training program for 6, 12, 18 weeks, your body may transform and start responding for 6 weeks and then stall and stagnate. The reason in my BKF online program we switch up the cardio systems and the training programs on week 3 and week 6 is down to that metabolic adaptation, so that people don't adapt to the training program and they can constantly progress. So what happens with nutrition and with low carbohydrate is you get that adaptation that your body gets used to 50 grams a day, and then it stops responding in a positive way in terms of composition. So one of the ways that people hack this is by cycling their carbohydrates or adding in a refeed or a high carb day somewhere structured within the low carb system. So for example, if you're doing 7 days low carb, you may have a refeed or a cheat day or whatever it is that's going to make sure that your metabolism doesn't stall and get too adaptive to low carbohydrate. So again, depending on the actual nutritional plan you're following, you may want to experiment with how often you refeed. Some people will do what's called a dirty refeed, is where they have a cheat day and they eat whatever they want. Some people do it with very clean foods, where they just eat a lot of sweet potato and oats and brown rice and they refeed that way. Other people have it that they do low carb and then refeed or have a high carb on their hardest training days, which is something that I do in my program because it's my favorite way of making sure that metabolism doesn't stall. But again, it works differently depending on each person. So what I would advise you do is low carbs works really, really well for a lot of people. I would just make sure you structure in your refeeds or structure in a high carb day so that you don't get the negative benefits of your metabolism stalling and you end up constantly progressing, losing body fat. That may be different. Experiment with refeeding every 7 days, every 10 days, every 14 days. Experiment with clean foods, experiment with dirty foods, experiment with doing it on your hardest training session. Again, there is no one size fits all, but some of the downsides to low carbohydrate is going to be down to metabolic adaptation, but you can hack that and hijack it completely by putting in either a high carb day, a refeed day, or structuring your higher carbs on your hardest training days, and that can work tremendously well for most people. Okay, so a mixture of questions there. A massive thank you for all the questions on Instagram. So guys, definitely hit me up on DM on Instagram. Let me know what you thought of this episode. I do scroll through, even though there's so many messages there. Anytime I have a couple of hours or I'm on a bus or a train or a plane, I literally just go through my DMs and check them out. So be sure to let me know how you find the episode. For more information on me or for my BKF online program or my GA Lean Body program, head over to the website www.briankeyfitness.com. My Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram is all Brian Key Fitness, and my Snapchat, BrianK019. Definitely check out those platforms on there. Massive thank you for listening. Catch you all soon.